One thing I love about a good story is when the author creates a beautiful parallel between two characters that are ultimately complete opposites character-wise, but thematically walk a very similar path. Gon and Meruem, Goku and Sukuna, Luffy and Blackbeard, Zeke and Eren, and now Chihiro and Sojo, and also kind of Chihiro and Hakuri, but that's a different subject. So let's talk about it.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
In Chapter 1 of Kagurabachi, we are introduced to Chihiro Rokuhira, son of Kunishige Rokuhira, a legendary bladesmith who was responsible for creating 7 enchanted swords that ended the Great Imperial War, while teaching his son the secret of the trade. And how he did this, they share a conversation here, talking about how even though they created the swords that slashed open a new era, they are still tools for killing people ultimately, and that he and his dad are complicit in those murders and deaths that they cause. Now, while Chihiro firmly believes in the side that katana should only be wielded by those dedicated to vanquishing evil, Sojo, on the other hand, here believes that Kunishige made these katanas for the sole purpose of causing death and slaughter, as he puts it. There are a few small points that are set up and shown to us before Chihiro and Sojo even meet in Chapter 8 here. 1, they both fell victim to this trauma sorcery here from both of these brothers, the older inflicting it upon Chihiro and the younger on Sojo. 2, both Sojo and Chihiro seemingly experienced some sort of childhood trauma as a result of the Enchanted Blades. This is kind of a theory craft that I'm working on right now, but in recent chapters we see the unboxing, the unveiling of the Magatsumi's power, or otherwise known as the Shinoichi, and this is similar to what we experienced from Sojo's flashback with his trauma here, and it could result and lead to the explanation of why he is so fascinated with these swords. But with their meeting in Chapter 8, the first thing that Chihiro asks Sojo was, is his blade stained with the blood of evildoers? Calling back to what his dad had told him back in Chapter 1, a katana should be wielded by those who are dedicated to vanquishing evil and protecting the weak. And Sojo's response to this question here was that it didn't interest him, but that, unironically, that blood was the blood of an evildoer. It was the blood of a man who had just recently asked Sojo to kill Chihiro for Chihiro killing his brother, creating this really strange cycle of bloodshed, and at the center, the Enchanted Blades. And from here on out, the clash of ideals between both Chihiro and Sojo begins to deepen, and after their initial clash, Sojo proclaims that he truly loves Kunishige Rokuhira, unknowingly telling this to the son of the very same man. And after some more of their exchange, Sojo goes on to ask Chihiro why he wields the sword and asks if he is worthy of it. Echoing his dad's words, Chihiro tells him it's to defeat evil and protect the weak, always. And again, both of these men wield the Enchanted Blades, and both question each other on why they are both wielding the Enchanted Blades in the first place. Both find that each other's answers completely unsatisfactory. Sojo telling Chihiro he is the only one who understands Kunishige Rokuhira here, and how all of the literature points to only one thing, that he gave birth to these weapons, the ultimate weapons of slaughter, and their only purpose is to kill. And the crazy thing is Sojo wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't right either. Sojo's twisted ideal saw a sword capable of causing so much death and destruction, and never even once assumed that it was for the protection of others. He was only seeing one side of the equation, even going so far as to call it altruistic garbage, and that it couldn't be more inappropriate to Rokuhira's weapons of mass destruction. Chihiro's entire life and his ideals taught to him by his father in this one meeting had been brought completely and utterly into question for both Sojo and Chihiro. It was inconceivable that they were both wrong in their understanding of Kunishige here with his swords. Chihiro believing the swords were meant for good, to cut down evildoers. Sojo believing that they were only created for the purpose of slaughter. But as I mentioned before, they were both right. And recognizing that they were both right, they both refused to step down in their ideals. Fast forward to Chapter 16, where the two next meet, and that's where it takes place here. In between a few more battles for them both, and while both of them fought those battles, their minds both wandered back to each other at certain points. Sojo's battles against the Kaminabe led him to deepen his understanding with Cloud Gouger, and Chihiro's fight against Sojo's men did the exact same. And in a true parallel, their quote-unquote awakenings happen almost at the exact same time, side by side, leading up to them both developing new powers with their respective blades. However, Chihiro's mind was weighed down with the fact that if Sojo was there in front of him, the members of the Kaminabe had fallen. and more good men and women were cut down at the fury of these enchanted blades. And while Sojo talked about how he deepened his understanding of these swords and their abilities, Chihiro could sense the deaths of the camaraderie caused by those same blades, but tried not to focus on it so he could focus on his fight with Sojo. Both standing face to face again and in agreement for once that what they needed now wasn't words. And upon their exchange of blows here, the two enter some sort of mind palace, almost, allowing them to talk to each other throughout their entire fight here. And with Sojo telling Chihiro that he accepts his nauseating beliefs, with Chihiro telling him, then you have no business wielding a sacred blade. However, now there is a new player that has entered the fray, a conundrum that Chihiro is now faced with. It's the blade itself. Chihiro had never once thought about the possibility that these blades actually choose their wielder. They have wills of their own almost. And it's something that's hinted at throughout the story that these blades, they're not just blades, they have their own minds. They harmonize with the wielder's convictions. The blades themselves seem to have some sort of will or soul of their own. And Sojo reaffirms this by telling Chihiro that he doesn't think he's wrong because the sword answers his convictions and it harmonized with them to gain slaughter. And for once, Chihiro was left completely and utterly awestruck at Sojo's answer and the evidence that he'd seen before him. He couldn't deny Sojo's growth with the blade, and he couldn't deny that the sword were made to strike people down, just as his father had told him. Sojo then furthers his talk by telling Chihiro that he's not the only one who can speak for Kunishigi. Anyone can take up on that role, and that's why this battle is meaningful. And again, he is not wrong. This is a fight for not only their lives, but also a clash of ideals. Chihiro genuinely struggles to come to terms with this for a little while, even thinking about what his father said, that they're still tools for killing. They aren't necessarily the right answer, but you're going to have to look at the world through your own eyes. And Chihiro, accepting that Sojo is correct in his argument, tells him that he accepts that they both speak for his father. Taking on board what Sojo has said, he decides that the best way forward would be to cut Sojo down with an even thicker bloodlust, leaning into the fact that ultimately these are tools for killing, and leaning into that allowed Chihiro to muster up a kuro slash that allowed him to tear through not only Sojo, but also the Cloud Gouger sword itself. It was as if he was no longer treating the sword and Sojo as two separate entities, but rather one combined force, considering how they'd harmonized. Accepting that the blade had chosen Sojo, but telling Sojo that he will never stand as an equal to his father, and for that he will cut him down. These parallels in the story, they continue to haunt Chihiro. Sojo's clash of ideals and Chihiro's struggle to accept that the swords weren't a part of his father like he'd imagined, and he was just going out to retrieve these blades, but rather he was going out to retrieve tools for killing that ultimately would harmonize with people with the right convictions. So now, whenever we are shown Chihiro struggling with this fact, Hokuzono takes us back to this imagery of this beach. The beach where the battle took place between the Kamanabi and Sojo, and it's the battle that took their lives, and it haunts Chihiro all the time. This internal conflict eventually does come to an end with Chihiro much later in the series as he prepares to enter the Rakuzaichi auction after meeting with a man called Hakuri, and that's where an entirely new separate set of parallels begins in this world and in this series. But that is another video for another time, because that one goes even deeper than what this does. Anyways, that is everything from me. If you've not already, please be sure to like and subscribe, as it does help me so you can see more Kagurabachi content and more Jujutsu Kaisen content. And as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love, big fucking kisses, peace.